Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Bright Founders Talk at Temi. Temi is an international software development company that designs, builds, and delivers software for sustainable businesses and promising startups. My name's Matthew, and I'm joined today by Mr. Andy Abgottspon, who is the founder and CEO of a company called Hazoo. How are you today, Andy?
I'm good. How are you, Matt?
Very well. Thank you for asking. And thank you, Andy, for joining us today, taking time out of your schedule to be with us. Before we get going, can you tell our viewers and our listeners a little bit about Hazoo? I've had a brief look. You have a long range of products and services available. Can you inform us, please?
Yes, we are a cloud platform, an all-in-one cloud platform that is based on visual principles. So we don't base the digital world on the analog concepts like maybe some others where we use still files and folders and PDFs that are pretty much coming from the analog world. We redefine the digital world with visual elements that are a little bit like pieces of Lego. They can have colors and icons, and with that you can basically create your whole digital world. And that greatly reduces the complexity and makes it a lot easier to navigate and use, whether it's for a school, a company, or even for yourself.
Fantastic. So you've simplified that for us quite nicely. Tell me a little bit about the birth of Hazoo. How did you recognize the need for this? How did you go about breaking into the market? Where did everything begin?
Yes, so for me, the personal journey started here in the Swiss Alps, where I'm from. And I always had that passion for technology, but also education. And then while I was working in London and then starting to work as well in Silicon Valley, this sort of later became a larger idea. And so what started as a project and a little part, it always sort of snowballed. And we then basically knew that this has to be a company. And so the inspiration came from sort of recognizing that the limitations of these traditional digital platforms are actually something that we want to overcome. And we want to, come up with something new that helps empower these people. And therefore, the story then took me back from Silicon Valley, where I was working back at the time, to back in my hometown here, where I then sort of continued building up on that idea. And nowadays we kind of have a foot in both sides. So we call it like the Silicon Valley and the Silicon Valley, which is the name of the region here in the Swiss mountains.
I think that's pretty cool. So you came up with this idea. One thing led to another. You mentioned the word snowballed. This idea was taking shape. It was being born. Tell us a bit about actually making that commitment, maybe starting up, bringing people in, finding funding. How did you go about creating this?
It's really something that when you look forward, it looks very straightforward. So you have an idea, you find funding, you find smart people to help you with it. You launch a product and you're successful, and that's it, right? That's the theory. But in practice, of course, every little assumption in there, gets challenged multiple times along the way, right? So finding the right people already, who can you trust, who is also of an entrepreneurial mindset and not just quote unquote an employee that says, okay, I have my salary, I'm not really thinking ahead in the sense of the company, and also willing to put in an extra effort, right? So I think it's a different mindset, people that are entrepreneurs and even startup entrepreneurs, from people that are maybe just happy with their ordinary 9 to 5 and not having maybe too much worries or responsibilities outside of that. Yeah, the challenge then for me was in the beginning also to find some funding to not just sort of sustain my own life. That was not the main problem, because you can sort of live cheaply for a while. But then it's also, you start building a team, you start having additional engineers, people that help with all of the other aspects of the business. And for that, funding is needed. And so I had a great network of friends and family here, mainly in Switzerland. And then also then with my business partner who joined here on the Swiss side and had a huge network here as well as managerial experience. We managed then to really get the funding going that really helped us bridge that gap between the vision we have and what we want to build, and also what we could have just done if it's just one or two of us.
So the right people around you make all the difference. And you mentioned something. You said that your assumptions got challenged multiple times through this process. Can you maybe tell us some of the lessons that you learned along the way? Was there anything particularly that you woke up one day and went, wow, I didn't know I was capable of this, or this is something I really didn't expect, or anything like that go on?
It's also about, you have a certain strategy and a vision, and then many things are quite unknown, right? So you're planting the seeds in many, many different places, and you invest and overinvest your energy and your time and your enthusiasm in many different directions, not knowing necessarily where certain things come out, right? One really good example is a school that we've supported here, just a 20 minutes drive from here in the mountains. And they started their school very similarly at the same time as we got started with Hazu. And even if Hazu, as you said earlier as well, right, this kind of snowballed, the idea got larger. So it started off as maybe having a purpose to be able to maybe make communication with events more streamlined, and have maybe a visual timeline to tag videos. And then this concept evolved to be a full system where an entire school can run projects, portfolios, student progress, and, for example, also parent communication. And so that school started with us 2016, and our kids so my baby Hazu and also my friend's baby there from the school, they started growing up together and they evolved together. And out of this came something very magical, that this is now one of the most recognized schools here in Switzerland, because they have a very unique system, very hands-on, very project-based, with very low budget, right? They don't have a huge IT budget, and they just have Hazu for everything. And they were followed by a documentary filmmaker for the last 6 years. And that film now has made it to national television, and tens of thousands of people watching this in the cinemas here. And so this is kind of one of those many, many seeds you plant that now, many years later, it seems obvious. Oh yeah, obviously you believed in those because they're a great school. But this is something that you can connect those dots now, looking back, and see how this really took fruit. And I think it's just a lot of these things, even many more of those that I've already forgotten, where we just tried and we supported and we gave everything, but it didn't work out. And these are some of these successes that then inspire the next ones.
So the application in schools, was that something that you thought of beforehand, or was it like, oh, we have an opportunity and you gave it a go?
I think it's because the system is quite generic. So with these elements or these visual pieces, you can structure and communicate almost any idea or information. So of course, that was something that was very early on appealing for any kind of educational aspect, where people were normally struggling with sending around PDFs or just basically having more administrative overhead with managing a lot of tools, instead of basically focusing on the interaction, on the human aspect, and actually the information itself. And so their education was playing a great role early on. But even within education, this sort of expanded from corporate learning to universities, to people using this on almost all levels in Switzerland here of the education system. And the same way, it was also something appealing to run international projects or even events, which is something that we do with the government, for example.
Wow, that's terrific. That is incredible. Now, for a layman like myself, I'm not too technically minded with these things, but I believe that there are a lot of cloud-based services out there. How do you deal with that? Deal with the competition, break into the market? What was it like acquiring customers?
I think that's always one of the main struggles, right? In the very beginning, you have quite a revolutionary idea, and then even the people that get it, they then maybe say, okay, but you're a startup. Are you still going to be there in a few years? Why should I trust you? So they might trust the idea or be very inspired by the idea, but it's hard for you to show substance, right? And say, oh, okay, they're going to bet a lot on you to use that maybe even as their backbone for their digital world. So that's something that you kind of can only overcome by just doing serious business, right? Just really working hard, keeping your promises with people, making sure that even in the beginning, it's only a few customers. You make them happy. You hold your word, you deliver, or you deliver even more than they expected. And from that base, like we had the government doing worldwide projects and even a Guinness World Record about the climate with Hazu, from that you sort of build up your credibility for you to say, even though we're comparatively a small company, we have kept our word. We have these other clients that believe in us. And yeah, if you want to do something amazing, you can trust us, you can talk to us, which maybe distinguishes us a lot from the large companies in, let's say, Silicon Valley or so, where, they might not really care about you or your project so much individually as we might do.
I like that. So that human connection, which I think is very important these days. A lot of us, I'm speaking for myself here, we get a little bit frustrated when everything becomes digital. We come from an era of, human contact on the phone, at least to speak to a person. So to have that, to have those relationships with your customers, I suppose, makes a massive difference for you guys.
I absolutely agree. And I think that's why, as you mentioned, how you then approach that market as well. We are mostly B2B, even though Hazu, from a conceptual perspective, can be a very good B2C product that can be sold directly to consumers and used pretty much by anyone. We are mostly focusing on the B2B market for now. And as we know, and as probably everybody in that same market knows as well, it's much of a people's business, right? So it's very much related on trust. It's people who are maybe the heads of school or the CEOs, the managers, the people who actually make those decisions. They don't just have to be convinced from a technological perspective, but also that it fits into their overall vision and strategy. And that is something that is, I think, quite key in the B2B space, and why a lot of our customers then also come from relationships from other customers, or from them basically seeing us used in a different context and going like, hey, this is a really smart way of solving that problem. How did they do this? Oh, Hazu, why not do the same?
Fantastic. Tell me a little bit about your projections. When you look forward, where do you see this going? Where would you like it to go?
Yeah, remember the school from a few minutes ago, right? So that little school there, ironically, or maybe that's the way fate has had to make it happen, we found our first customer in Silicon Valley, in Palo Alto, through that school here around the corner. And it happened through an expert of the Swiss education system. And she visits the most innovative, interesting schools in the world. So she makes like a study trip all around the world with some other experts, and they go see what are the most interesting schools conceptually, but what are also the most innovative schools in terms of technology and the digital world. And they actually were over there in that Imagination Lab school in Palo Alto. And they saw that that's a really amazing school, like the mindset there, the way people treat each other, the values, but also how, the success they have and what great things they can accomplish. But then this expert, her name is Rahel, she came back to Switzerland and then visited the school up here. And her summary was that she didn't see anything like it digitally, like this little school here, right? Even though it's a small mountain school, they don't have IT budgets, they don't even have an IT responsible person or any sort of servers or all the latest devices. They just have Hazu and it runs on all devices, even if it's the old laptop from your dad. And she then told the other guys in Silicon Valley, hey, there's one thing you're missing here, and that's Hazu, and that will help you get to the next level in your digital world. And yeah, they have since become customers. And this has been sort of our launch to go back to where kind of Hazu was originally founded as well, but now it has matured in Switzerland. And now I think one of the next steps for us will be also to set foot again in Silicon Valley, where we now have this lighthouse project of a first school that we want to use as a showcase and just make it really, really great.
That's fantastic. And I think obviously the application of your software within that learning environment, if it's benefiting the school on that level, to be able to expand into other schools and give more and more people this opportunity to streamline and facilitate their work, that would be a great place to go.
Absolutely. And you could think that, okay, here in the mountains, they don't have anything else and they know you, and it's all based on that, right? So you can sort of always say that's the reason why they use this platform. But you see now that with the success that they're having, where other people sort of validate it from externally and say, hey, this is a really, really smart way how you can organize yourselves within each other, but also with external stakeholders and the parents and the companies that might be involved and help you out as a school to be more industry focused, that these same exact best practices and patterns, they are even appreciated and seen in Silicon Valley, in a place where people are surrounded by the smartest and best solutions in the whole world of technology, right? And so having sort of that approval, and at the same time being able on the human level to connect these schools in their mindsets and say, hey, here's things you can learn from each other, right? So we've almost created like this, again, with this visual approach, a visual language for them to exchange ideas, even though they're in different countries with different curricula and different languages. And yeah, they are connected in this sort of way. And that helps us all learn from each other, which for us is actually the whole spirit of what we're trying to do.
I'm going to shift the ball a little bit, and I'm going to ask you about yourself personally. Is this something you always wanted to do? Did you always want to be an entrepreneur? Was it something that always appealed to you? Did it happen by chance?
I've always had that fascination with technology. So when I was 13 years old, I started making websites, even commercial websites. So as a 13, 14-year-old, I was kind of like a fully fledged little one-man company that was doing the concept, the design, and also the programming for websites that were almost as big as here, like the whole regional cable net provider, right? Which has been quite a company of a few hundred people. And so it's interesting to see that from that day, just because I was interested, you sort of build your hours, you become better. And it started as an idea to say, hey, yeah, people have a need for what I can do well. And then, you almost become an entrepreneur from that. And then kind of throughout my studies that were more focused, on both computer science, the programming aspect, but also a little bit more creative sides of things with studies in the UK related to computer animation, visual effects, games, and also AI, kind of before it was so cool as it is today. That was over 10 years ago. That was something that kind of came full circle, right? And even throughout my studies, I kept my clients at my side business. And even when I landed my first job off of uni for a company that was creating visual effects software for companies like Pixar and Sony, even in that company as an employee straight from uni, I was always networking with all the people in the company from the other departments. So I wanted to know what makes the sales guy and the marketing guy and the support guy tick. And even through football, which was my passion there, I organized like a football or a soccer league there for that industry. I actually got to know a lot of people and learn from them to basically then take all this knowledge to my next step in the journey, where I was not just interested to see that whole thing from an employee side, but also how would it look like if I maybe one day find an idea or something that is so powerful that I have to say, I just got to do it now.
That is so cool. But with everything that is going on from the age of 13 or 14, you've been involved, working, you've had quite a busy schedule. How do you find time to do everything else?
There's one anecdote from university, and a friend of mine, we were all working on our master's project. He was just there in the morning, and I told him, hey, do you want to go play some football? We have like a little five-a-side fun guys, and we're all going to be back here in 4 hours, and you can continue on our master's project then. And he was like, I don't know, I'm just going to fiddle with this. And I just went to play football, was energized, met some good other interesting people. I came back and I was really fully energized to then work on my project. And in the end, I had an amazing project that I was really proud of. When I came back at 3:00 to him, we were in the same study dorm. I asked him, so how did it go? Did you make progress in those 4 hours I would play football? He was like, I got sidetracked. I was doing this. And so he was not just not progressing in that time. his sort of motivation and mindset went down, right? And so I just found out that having these different things, they kind of energize. And at some point, because during football there, it also helped me maybe network or meet with other people that gave me different perspectives, where I could also gain insights from many, many other facets of life, that this actually helped me to, not be so focused and maybe have also that balance that people talk about, which I always had in sports when I played football, or even nowadays football, ice hockey, or even golf. These are just things that help your brain sort of get into a different mindset, and then you can come back and look at a problem completely freshly.
I like that. I like that a lot. Andy, one last one for you. Is there anything you'd like to tell our viewers and our listeners regarding Hazu before I let you go?
Just check us out. Our website is hazu.io, or also hazu.swiss with a Z, so HAZU. And you can check us out if you think it's something that you might like to find out more about. Get in touch, even if you have any other questions about us or our journey, want to do something really cool and just, need a platform to do it with. I think we can provide a lot of value, and always excited to talk to smart people having great ideas.
Fantastic. So Andy, I just want to say thanks again. We'll be keeping our eye on you, and wishing you all the best for the future.
Thank you so much, Matt.